doing. Like, we don't really know that kind of communication. But to me, that's overall macro then, where Fnatic is struggling. Because, like, mistakes like that is something you do in solo queue.
Yeah.
You don't do that on the stage.
It's very true. However, it is worth noting that the last time these two met up some weeks ago, it was Fnatic that pulled out the win, and man, was that a crazy game. As we see the Kalista ban, the Alistar, and the Kog'Maw.
And ironically, that was due to a really big macro mistake by H2k when they went for the teleport on Odoamne when he was split pushing the base. He likely could have taken 2 Nexus towers, if not the Nexus itself. So I hope this is an even game where late game Odoamne has to decide, does he teleport in or not? And then we can see the repeat.
If he learned something. I like this from H2k in terms of the bans, because if we look at Fnatic, and the way they've been winning the last few weeks is like build comps around Reckless with protecting him and then get to late game, and then he tries to be the carry. So like you ban out their entire Giacomo basically, and Kalista, we know it's not a Forgiven champion specifically. So all the bans technically make sense, and it's very target banned towards Fnatic.
I mean, Forgiven has been playing a fair amount of Kog'Maw himself in solo queue, so opts out of that here. So the 3 best AD carries are out of the equation. I feel that's where Forgiven shines, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Once he goes lower in the list, because he doesn't... Very often, he will not play some of these top-tier picks, and then he was actually really good on the likes of like a Caitlyn, for example. So right now, they denied a Corki. They could still flex that into mid lane, and then put Reckless into a really awkward matchup later on where he has to play Ezreal, perhaps. Very slow, you know, a ramp up. And Fnatic have shown when they play slow, the enemy team just takes control of the map.
Very true. But in order to first pick up that Corki, they did leave the GP open. Obviously, it wasn't enough last game for Giants to really come through. But still, this is a different team.
But with the GP pick, we get into the same situation for Fnatic, where it's going to be very late game focused against a team like H2k, who is so good at snowballing that mid game with superior macro play.
Yeah, and also just with high pressure lanes. Corki in the mid lane could be high pressure lane. If Jankos just opts in for the Nidalee right here, you already have a guaranteed losing matchup in a GP. GP loses every single matchup early. I don't think there's a single one that he really mid or top versus conventional picks that he wins. So that's already 1 pressure down. All you need to do is secure a 2nd pressure advantage for either mid or top prio, and suddenly the Nidalee could invade, and that's right up Jankos' alley.
What I do like about Gangplank though, if we just look at him as a champion and his ulti, it is very good at shutting down some of these fast pushes we see very often when the teams are building up the big waves and going 4-man and like pushing a tier 2 tower. Gangplank does shut that down, but it is with him sacrificing a lot of the early game pressure. And honestly, we are expecting it almost to be Febiven playing it, because Gamsu's been playing mainly tanks top. And I'm not sure I trust in Gamsu right now in his current level to pull off a great Gangplank.
Very, very true. And speaking of tank tops, you know, we've got ourselves a Nautilus lock-in this time. It should be going to Odoamne's hands. And they also complete the Braum. So a very, very tanky frontline for H2k. And this Corki, as you said, could still go anywhere. H2k have not given up that much by showing that Braum early.
Yeah, definitely Braum is just a solid 2nd rotation pick when Alistar is off the table. It is probably the best support you can pick up next, especially if you want some peel, some disengage, and some good team fighting. Over in the LPL, we see it pretty much every game where it's possible to be taken, and they love their team fighting.
They do indeed. Their old LPL meme is definitely back. It's very aggressive in the LPL right now. Not so much in Europe, I would say, especially not when H2k is playing.
You gotta look at the teams that are at the top. Them, Vitality, right?
Exactly, yeah. I'm not expecting a Jhin to come in from Fnatic.
It's really only been a sneaky special. He turns himself to the Ezreal. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very, very late game focused. This one, you have scaling jungler, scaling Gangplank, scaling AD carry.
They can win the bot lane though, because it's melee support versus range support. Obviously, has the push advantage.
It can be Caitlyn locked in now with Braum.
That's what I want to see.
Then, like,
I like the pressure. You know, the Corki flex in the initial roll. Obviously, Febiven still has a potential counter pick, but if he has done the math, or if Ryu has done the math and he knows that Gangplank is likely going mid here, then suddenly H2k have a good draft, because Nautilus wins almost every matchup early in terms of push pressure. Just due to base damages on his E. And then H2k, they can play an aggressive jungler here. They can look for Graves or Nidalee and just push all lanes,
give me Nidalee. Just take Nidalee, because I mean, you want that early pressure from Jankos anyway, and you can invade on the Gragas. Especially again, we're not saying Gamsu won't play the Gangplank top, but if I'm H2k, I'd much rather have him play the Gangplank than Febiven. So now you have set up a situation where if it's Corki mid lane, which of course it is with the Caitlyn pick we just talked about, and it's Gangplank mid against it, Gangplank is sitting on his tower. That opens up for Nidalee to invade on the Gragas, who's a lot weaker in the early game. So like, it's a perfect Nidalee setup for Jankos. unless Fnatic can pick something that can actually pressure the Corki in mid or go even with him, we could see like a LeBlanc coming in or an Ari pick potentially. But then again, Gamsu's playing the Gangplank, so that's the trade-off.
Yeah, I mean, gentlemen, there's really not much else to add. You guys pretty much predicted what H2k were going to do to a T here, and this is kind of like what Sean's is saying and what Youngbuck is saying, is that they execute these very, very tight plans very well. But even if you know it's coming, what can you do to stop it? I mean, so far, few teams have.
Maybe like a Quinn pick can come in here to win at least one of the lanes, but it's so unlikely for Fnatic given their history. So I definitely agree with the Visho. Like, it's so likely that Gamsu will play a tank top, but in the tank v tank matchup, Nautilus will always have the push advantage.
Yeah.
So unless Spirit can nail some of these ganks, that is their win condition. Like in standard lanes, Spirit has to get a gank off.
It's too predictable.
But if it fails versus Nidalee, you're so screwed.
This is such a problem for Fnatic in the pick and ban phase overall. Like, I feel like it's too predictable when two casters, three casters, sorry, I'm gonna add you in as well.
For that one.
Is sitting and looking at a lot of picks and kind of like, in a way, predicting it, being like, yeah, this is probably gonna be the Gangplank mid because of this and this. Like, of course, every other team is doing exactly the same, and I feel like H2k he's kind of played around that in this pick and ban phase.
Especially Probably. If there's one
yeah,
coach,
of course, I probably
that's gonna be. He's probably smarter than all three of us combined. In the
easy.
The little time that we spent at the H2k house just doing the interview and observing like the fraction of a scrim just left such a stark impression on me from Probably.
I feel like he's a good team around him as well. You know, good analyst. We had Oliver there as well as like the manager helping out. So
that's true.
It's a good setup for H2k veteran, the analyst for them.
It's going to be a tough call, guys. Now, you've seen the comps. It's time to see the action as H2k take to the Rift against Fnatic.
You have Forgiven, and then you have two dogs that are basically following him. And then he just says tower, and then they kill the tower, and then they go to the next tower. It's really easy to prepare against that, because you basically know where their support and jungle is when you see their AD carry.
They're still kind of like a wild card. I don't really know what to think of them. Like, they can be really good, but they can be really bad as well.
Everything can happen right now.
We will show a good League of Legends versus Fnatic.
It's really important because we lost to them. I don't want any team in the LCS to have a 2-0 record over us.
Don't want anybody to have a 2-0 record. H2k could shut the book on that one against Fnatic.
Yeah, I know how that feels when almost the entire league has a 2-0 record over you.
Oh, bad memories are...
Yep.
I like that comment from February though.
Two dogs.
Yeah, two dogs around Forgiven. Vander went on Twitter, typing woof woof as well and everything, like embracing it.
That's what I like about the European scene right now. They're not afraid to enter a little bit, dabble a bit in the trash talk zone. And there's nobody kind of like getting too upset about it.
And nobody gets offended.
It's just fun banter.
Yeah, it is. And it is correct though. But funny enough, it's the correct way to play the game. Like, your jungle support has to always roam together so often. And when you have an AD carry who is so good at applying pressure, especially on towers, you play around him because he's often your strong lane when you also play tanks and top.
When you have probably the best trading AD carry in terms of just purely microcosm 2v2 trading, no all-ins, then why not play around it? Why not enable that? As for Fnatic right here, I'm wondering if they would have considered a lane swap to maybe relieve some of that pressure from the Nidalee.
Yeah, it may have definitely suited them, but you have to think too, Fnatic have typically had very bad lane swaps this split. Maybe they're just not necessarily playing around the communication factor well enough, and I don't know if they trust it. But in this situation, I agree. It seems like they do not want to face down the Caitlyn Braum lane, especially not with Forgiven at the helm.
I think it's an issue for Fnatic overall, in that they've had games where they took chances on trying to take a lane swap, and then they didn't get it, and they got set behind a little bit. It might be the same in this case here. But still with H2k and this whole jungle support synergy, it's what we praise so often with this team, where Cly and Spirit, obviously still a new combo, we haven't seen that yet.
Crucial point for this bot lane right now though. They're both running to the bot lane after doing the camps. With double range, you can out-push Caitlyn Braum if you get a little lucky on the creep. So if they get level 2 first, they can actually deal with this lane, but otherwise, it'll be very annoying to play against Forgiven on that Caitlyn.
Yeah, Caitlyn obviously just instant goes in, shoots a Q through the wave where Reckless is trying to push it down himself, and then double Relic for Vander to instant proc. They are level 2 now in the bottom lane, and Fnatic is being forced back. And every lane now, or at least the 2 lanes around the bottom side of the map, is going to be pushing in. Gamsu had to push up on top side, so this is good for Fnatic at least.
Yeah, I like it.
But the other 2 lanes, you can see Corki already pushing mid, bot lane is being pushed in. Look for for Jankos to roam straight into the enemy blue buff now. And he's doing exactly it. Like, he's skipping his own red buff because he has the 2 adjacent lanes pushing. So he's just instantly invading it, saying, if Gragas is here, I'm gonna kill him.
And even better, Odoamne, he could win that push as we see a duel between Spirit and Jankos here. Odoamne can win that push level 1 against Gamsu. He let Gamsu push him, knowing that he can then bounce the wave backwards because he knows the jungler starts his side. And then Paz like, I like this in the Gragas matchup, interrupting any leap with body slam. Spirit not afraid here of Jankos. Could have probably gotten a lot worse there.
Spirit was just trying to buy time to get his smite ready again so he can actually start the wolf camp, but it's a bit too long with the cooldown, and he's now forced away. Like, there's only a Rift Scuttler for him to take. This is exactly what we talked about. Pushing lanes, so by having that Corki mid lane, by picking that Caitlyn, allows the Nidalee to invade early, and Jankos is playing it correct. Invade on the Gragas, he's weaker early on.
Yeah, everybody's pushed back except in that top lane where it's relatively even. You take a look in the mid, Febiven has just been pushed back so hard, losing out on the CS. Also, very curious mastery choice as he grabs Forgiven on the bottom side. Cly does now. We'll go back to that in just a minute. Vander taking tower shots.
But that's a typical Forgiven play. Playing at the edge and thinking he can get out there, but even then, with the flash, it doesn't matter because look where Spirit is on the map right now. We talked a little bit about predictability in picks and bans. This early game, the way this comp is playing out is completely standard. And H2k are using that to their advantage. They know exactly that Spirit's on the left side of the map, likely will have to base right now. This is the only variable. Where does Spirit go? And that has to work for Fnatic. If not, this repetitive pushing will just make them bleed resources.
And so many things in this current meta, and a lot of pro players often talk about, you know, this whole tempo thing. Having the push in your lanes is what sets you up to make the aggressive plays, and that's exactly what H2k is doing with the comp and the pick and ban phase. Like, everything was planned from the pick and ban phase.
So confident, by the way. Do you see that lantern? Kai threw a lantern backwards as if the jungler was coming. Vander and Forgiven walked up. They told him, no, your jungler is not coming. You're trying to cheese us. And they actually just take that trade, and they have to push again here. And they're overextending a little bit for that Q. But this lane is probably just going to end up for a push in Fnatic, so we need to look at the rest of the map right now.
So Spirit just hit level 4 right now. Jankos is already level 5, getting another camp for himself. Question now for Jankos is, like, what's the next move? How can he invade Spirit again? Top side is now pushing for Odoamne, but there's no camps. So he has to actually go back to base and then return to bottom side one more time, which also secures the push from Forgiven and from Corki. So I like him returning to bottom side now, allowing the Caitlyn to push in again once she's gone back and getting the BF sword.
Yeah, it won't be about the ganks either, since it's hard to gank these lanes. The Ezreal able to get out of harm's way, the Gamsu able to get out of harm's way if he decided to go top, but as you said, heads towards this bottom side. The thing is, he doesn't really need to. You see how much of a lead Forgiven started to build up versus Reckless already. Febiven's still shoved in. He's caught up on farm a little bit more. It's kind of hard to keep a Gangplank from really CSing the longer the game goes on. But H2k off to a great start for themselves without really having to do much more than pressure in the jungle.
Forgiven stayed in lane, even though Vander recalled here. He has enough for BF, but...
It's in the name, by the way. Forgiven Greed, because you run out of characters. It actually stands... Everybody thinks it stands for Forgiven Grease. It's actually Forgiven Greed. Love staying in those lanes. This ward, though, this can be dirty here. They don't know that... They think they're baiting, and this is where Forgiven, does he get the outskirt?
Spirit is coming, though.
He wants to get hooked. He wants to get hooked here, and then they want to bait in. Kai.
It's too obvious, though, that he's just dancing around it. Oh,
no, it's never obvious.
Spirit was there.
He's just constantly dancing there, and Cly's like, waiting. Alright, let's just go for it and see if we can get anything. Spirit had showed up, but there was a ward, obviously, and now Jankos is in the jungle again.
Yeah, so Jankos is able to get free, I would say camps, but there really aren't any to take at the moment. It has been all about this bottom side for both junglers, really. Jankos hanging around here, and Reckless and Cly still getting poked out by Vander.
He just gets information, though. He knows that both camps are down. You could technically group here with Corki. You go for a mini siege early in the game because H2k will always have that option to put their jungler on the lane, turn it into a siege.
Right.
Jankos, no race there, so didn't see that Spirit didn't connect.
But it is, again, one of the big things about Nidalee pick, why she's become such an S-tier pick, is that teams figured out it's not about ganking and like getting an early kill, level 3, level 4. It's about just controlling the enemy jungler and just being way faster than him, so you kind of speed up the game. You force him also into taking different paths to go gank, to do something, because he's not going to get a lot of camps, and that's how you pressure him. And then also when you have to pushing lanes, you just group with your laner and you hit the tower.
I'm going to have to interrupt you here, because there's...
I was already done, it's fine.
I'm not going to have to interrupt you here, but there's a breaking development here in the H2k side. Forgiven has skilled traps. Pre-level 12. This is
He's still not gone back to base,
we haven't engaged.
May not come in handy. Ignite was down on him, but teleport's coming in, and Odoamne turns for Clyde. That's first blood. Given over to the Ezreal, though, as Rekkles picks that one up. Vander a little bit low in all the craziness, so the bot lane of H2k down. Odo getting free hit on. Gamsu looking to try and cut him off there, throws the ward down. Minions at the back. This will be another given over to Rekkles. 2-0, and now we've got a pause. Great start for Rekkles, though.
Yeah, that was like the perfect play for Fnatic. There was a fight in the bottom lane where even though there was a CS difference, Forgiven hadn't gone back to base yet, so they were both sitting on Dorn's Blades. Fight starts and no flash, obviously, on the Caitlyn. And they win that one. Like, this was almost perfect for Fnatic. They were losing in map pressure, they were losing jungle 1v1, but then they pick up a few kills now.
Yeah, and that's actually the way H2k want to approach the game, is they want to choke you out slowly and then make you break. If you can find an opening in that process, just like they did right now with a deep teleport ward, you can completely turn the tide of this matchup. And Fnatic, they got that ward in and they got the teleport in, and maybe you almost have to fault H2k. They should have spotted that ward being placed so deep in their lane, because beautiful flank here from Gamsu with the teleport.
And this is also where this Gangplank pick shines so much. And it's one thing is his late game damage is fantastic, yes.
Right.
But it's, to me, it's more the ulti in professional play. Like having that second global where he doesn't even need to leave the lane, just to assist when there is these 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, it gives a very big edge to you. And also, of course, you can use it when it comes to clearing out these minion waves if needed.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, a really solid play for them. The Gangplank coming in massively handy. By the way, just a quick little update for everybody watching, wondering what's going on. Clyde had a bit of a keyboard issue. Looks like soon to resolve, so we could be hopping back into that one. It's only about 7.5 minutes on the mark, but I mean, that kind of busted this game open for Fnatic to put 2 kills on that Ezreal early on. It'll get a lot of gold into his pocket to be able to build up towards his items earlier.
Every struggling member, except for Spirit, just gained a lot. 3 assists for Febiven in mid lane, 2 kills, as you said, here for Rekkles. This is going to make it a lot easier for Fnatic now to play out these lanes. And also, it's going to help them. If we look at the game time, we were saying, like, okay, at like 25 minutes or 30 minutes, they're really going to spike and be super strong. That's going down a few minutes because of some early kills.
Yeah, but luckily for Spirit, we saw a couple of camps. Jankos walked to Grump, it was gone. Wolves, they were gone. He spears the Raptors, they literally spawn like 3 seconds later. So every camp that Jankos checked spawned right after, and then Spirit can clear them out. And right now, what you trade for doing camps is you trade momentum, you trade tempo, call it what you want. You're busy clearing camps when Jankos can pressure, but there is nothing to pressure because half the team is dead right now. So this is actually also a moment where Spirit at least can catch up a little bit.
Yeah, and Spirit, you know, he's been showing that even though he can't quite keep up the same pace that Jankos has had this game, he's been holding him off. Not only is those camps timing actually very, very fortunate and very good for him, but whenever Jankos has tried to meet him in the middle of the jungle, he's been able to push him back. The Gragas mechanics coming in handy. And the utility that champion brings. It's why they prioritize. It's coming in big for them.
Yeah, you don't pick Gragas to match the early game of an Italy. Obviously, no. you pick it to be a lot stronger in team fights where Italy is a lot weaker. So definitely great for Fnatic, despite all the things going wrong. You know, we can talk about in the early game and the pick and ban phase. When this happens and you suddenly pick up so many early kills, it can really turn the game around.
Indeed, looks like we're going back into the game, so here we are. Remember, Engage ended 3-for-1 in favor of Fnatic, with 2 of those kills going over to Rekkles. TP's burned on both sides. And
I mean, probably already burned his nose there.
Yep.
Just looking at that play in the bottom lane. Still, H2k can return and do the same. There's still BF Sword for Forgiven. Sad for him, got a crit cloak as the second one. Exactly the greatest.
That's always the rough part when you just get forced to base on really weird items. You can really snowball in your build down the line, because the next time you base, you may not have enough and you can't really punish the matchup as hard. Rekkles is already sitting comfortable on a finished item.
Yeah, so one of the things Forgiven did gain by staying in lane was he forced Rekkles to stay as well, so he didn't get an early tier. Fly, though, getting caught out, no flash.
No flash, gets stunned.
Stunned after the play, doesn't have any tools to get out of this one. He does hook Vander in, and all of a sudden Rekkles and Spirit are right behind him. Vander's gone, big explosive cast to knock them all back into the team, and Jankos will be able to return fire onto Spirit. Ace Null hits Rekkles as he body blocked for Clyde.
Here's Gamsu, though.
Gamsu around the side, looks for Forgiven. There's the summoner heal, there's the flash. 2 summoners trying to get out of this one. Ryu has to burn his as well.
Complete surprise here for H2k, because in no seemingly world should Gamsu show up here. He teleported down to the bot lane base. He should be walking top, so H2k completely surprised by Gamsu. Obviously, Odawam is going to punish that play, though. Very risky for Gamsu to just level 7, walk towards the blue buff.
He did gain, well, what he gained was a lot of flashes being blown, so Fnatic has an opening now. Once this TP is up again for Gamsu, maybe to try and punish. Also, yeah, you have TP for Febiven, you have the ulti, so if Fnatic is able to do something in the next few minutes, it could have been worth it, but still, I mean, you fall really far behind the CS, and it's been kind of the Gamsu way. He's often been sacrificed a bit.
I wonder if this was a strategic play where they actually rotate the GP into waves that crash into a tower to get a farm advantage, and they surprise H2k by doing something illogical, like sending your top laner with no teleport into a skirmish. Seems a little very calculated though for a team that has been struggling severely with the macro.
It was a fairly slow starting skirmish, like with catching out Clyde and chasing in, so there's a high chance Gamsu was just on his way, and then the call happens, hey, we're fighting. I'm just going back on my screen to look. He was at his own top inhib.
And he turned around.
And then Clyde is in the river, pinging away like a madman on Jankos. And still Gamsu is in between the two lanes. He's actually walking down before, as soon as Clyde gets caught out, he instantly already starts turning down towards bottom side.
Yeah, Client Spirit right back in that bottom side jungle again. It has been a lot of attention paid by both teams to it. Blue buff should go over to Spirit unless Jankos has something to say about it, because he's brought his own support, that jungle support synergy on both sides.
Yeah, and just backed up by the vision. 2 pink wards, and the style that H2k likes to play, it's not won by skirmishes. Ooh. They want to eventually kill your towers, and both mid tower and bottom tower have now taken significant chunks, I believe. I'm just going to double check the mid one. Yeah, that's one is on 35% of 30. So that will be the tipping point. That's where H2k get the advantage, and Fnatic really fortunate, or just a solid play with that teleport, because otherwise they would have looked at a 3,000 gold deficit once these towers go down.
And the reason a lot of people find H2k's playstyle a bit boring is because it is technically built around winning without fighting.
Do you?
I find it very interesting. I think it's super
Sounds
fun
like a
to
boring
watch.
person.
I am a boring person, Crepple. You know that. That's why we had to bring you on the desk so you can bring a bit more excitement. I'm not really feeling it yet. You gotta step up the game a little bit.
Well, you know I like the fights, guys, but still, H2k have been demonstrating that they can get out ahead and stay ahead without really necessarily forcing any of those fights. You see it. They're in the lead here, not just with that tower, but even before it, while being in a deficit in kills. After that early move, Spirit gets his back stopped by the rocket of Rio.
Yeah, back stopped here. The biggest fight we might see is the one that will break out later between me and Deficio if this continues.
I'll have to separate you guys in just a minute.
I
I'll go
will
in the
most
middle.
likely lose it due to you drinking your Red Bull light sugar-free. And maybe you're working out a little bit as well.
Just a little bit. All right. So Gamsu and Odawamne can tank it out up in the top side against each other. We've talked about Gamsu at length on this champion. He's had pulled it out a few weeks ago, and he had
That almost bored when you say
not a good one.
like,
I mean, he was really good in one game, but then we were like, oh, it's Gatsu. Okay, he's great. But then since like week 1 against Origin, we hadn't really seen that much from him, so we were just excited.
Yeah.
All right, right now, Spear's lurking in the bottom. This is the only lane that he can technically gank, so H2k should be ready for it. This time, no deep wards for our Gatsu, though, so it may just stay the original Gamsu. We need to see him go Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Fnatic needs like 5 episodes right now for him to charge up.
Well, the way this game's going, we could be in for a long one. 800 gold is the lead for H2k at 12.5. Jankos moving down to the bottom side. It just has been a party in the bot lane. This is Forgiven's favorite.
Oh yeah, he likes this, by the way. He's a big fan. Every time we play, he really tells us how much he likes people ganking his lane.
Gamsu is reacting a little bit on the top side, but again, he's not really in a position to TP. It's so fun when there are 2 top laners that can both interrupt each other. Who TPs first? And like, are you standing right in front of him? Because then he can interrupt you, and then you can try and move back and potentially TP.
You can also tell when they're looking to TP, because they'll stop their movements like every 3 seconds to pan over the map, and then you know. It's the same way when if you're playing solo queue and you're about to get ganked, you know, because the guy will stand still and type to his jungler that's now hiding in the lane. So.
And also with the TPs, like the guy stepping in and out of the bush suddenly because like, oh, I don't want him to interrupt me.
Yeah, a lot of mind games.
Both top laners are basically hearing from the team right now if there's a potential fight happening. They get to hit each other a little bit up here in top side. Odamna is winning out on that one, pushing in another wave, and H2k is setting up a dive. There is GP ulti and TP. This is a very risky dive to pull off. I do not think it's a good idea.
No, I don't think H2k are thinking about it just yet either. They actually back off. The True Shot Barrage comes in. That will deter them for the rest of it. Still, 4 members of H2k close to the bottom side as Ryu turns back around to the mid to clear the wave out. Instead, they're going to push forward.
Yeah, very often H2k will put you in a position where both teams know what's coming. The thing is just there is no counterplay. H2k have already won. This time though, Fnatic realized they could likely defend it, And Jankos already said all your jungle are belong to me, so he just moved up to the different side of the map. Spirit is constantly stuck in his bottom lane, trying to shadow for this lane, but he's losing his camps.
And I guess technically, being consistent makes you predictable in that sense, but you're just waiting for that one mistake from the other team where their consistent, predictable play you are making are the correct one, and they are not reacting in time, and then you punish them. Spirit might go for Ryu, ends up doing not a whole lot.
It's the knockout. And this is the thing about Fnatic, guys, a huge chunk of damage is tanked by the Fat Man there. Fnatic are not a consistent team. You saw last week. They had this crazy game against G2 as that tower goes down and Clyde gets poked out, has to flash away from the Runic Echoes proc that Jankos was sending flying with the Spirit, but then they couldn't do a thing against Splice.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% correct. That's been Fnatic's main problem. And it often boils down to if you don't have, you know, proper shot calling and macro play in that sense, you become inconsistent because your team is not able to identify what to do at a given moment. And then they do some weird stuff from time to time. But Fnatic now, looking for another play in this bottom lane. They know it's where they can do something.
It's so hard with the vision that they have. When Kai's flash is burned, that is the one condition where he can actually flash over his skill shot, maybe send out a hook, and find a catch, because H2k's river vision is just so good, because they're constantly playing with pressure, and this goes back to the draft. Yeah, you can play predictable, because H2k can just cover their grounds. They will always have wards around you and play, and they will force Fnatic into predictable gank patterns, because Spirit can't gank top, Spirit can't gank mid. He has to go bot.
And this is why H2k are sitting up there at the top of the table. I mean, we've seen all of our top teams play already today. H2k is the last one. They get another win. We're still in that three-way tie for first place. H2k, you heard it from Otawamne at the beginning of it. He does not want to give anyone a 2-0 record. They're playing for playoff seeding. Fnatic is playing for the same, but it's on the lower end as that blue buff unfortunately resets.
And the worst thing now for Fnatic is if you are in losing lanes and you end up losing your tower without gaining anything for it, it's very hard then to make the next play, because normally what could have happened was like, oh, Fnatic pushed out the bot lane, recalled with Cly and Reckless, and then rushed top lane, and they tried to trade towers because they were losing that bot tower anyway. But you couldn't do that because you were constantly pushed into the tower, so you would have been way behind in the play. And that's such a big issue. If you're not able to trade, you will automatically lose out.
Yep.
And then now, you just lost more map control. H2k are once again in your jungle. And Reckless are looking for a fight with his team. That's kind of the way back, is like take a big team fight.
And that little interaction right there is why I think this Braum pick will be very deciding later on in the game. Fnatic are putting their eggs in the late game basket if they can't get flanks with Gamsu off. The problem is that there's so much denial of damage from that Braum pick. He can interrupt every single missile that Ezreal shoots. I think he can even block the barrel explosion. That's blocked by Braum's shield to my knowledge. So if Vander plays well, he can single-handedly counter everything Fnatic have to offer in the late game. He'll die in the process.
Sure.
But worth, man, if you get the game. Yeah, Braum, Vander coming in pretty big. I mean, Braum has been very popular in general, especially when that Alistar has been banned away. We'll see how he continues to be played by Vander, who's had this very successful split so far in H2k.
And we talked about how Fnatic, again, by losing that first tower just normally in the laning phase without gaining anything, again, it just set you so far behind because it allowed now H2k to push up bot lane, have Reckless have to push out a long lane instead to get to a tower, and then just rotate top. And you just, again, you very quickly take a tower without any response from Fnatic, or if there is, it's a very late one.
Yeah, this almost feels like the equivalent of Peanut, like going for the 4 buff. H2k want to 4 tower somebody, but Fnatic looking to take their first tower of the match.
We need a name for that, by the way.
We'll come up with it when it happens. Reckless is pretty close to finishing this one off. Oh, might be overstaying. Ooh, get yanked back as he takes the tower. Still, though, the outers of Fnatic have fallen like dominoes, and it's all on the inner now. That means H2k have even more map play available to themselves. Fnatic still kind of stuck within their own jungle, and even that hasn't been safe with so much pressure from Jankos all over the place. See what Otawamne can get done on this top side as well, continuing to push it back. And it's
kill the minions.
All the minions.
Your two analysts are standing here in silence, and you're like, I guess I'll keep
talk about CSing,
because
guys. There's
nothing that will change. That's the beauty and the sad part about H2k. They draft a composition that has a very predictable play pattern. They then execute to a T, barring one teleport mistake, and they slowly choke the life out of Fnatic. Perhaps this game, if you're not the Fishio, there's only maybe 1 or 2 people in the world that enjoy it.
I mean, this is very
I know you
clinical
enjoy
for
this kind of
H2k.
game as well, Fred.
Yeah, but I gotta bring the balance, you know.
This is smart, though. Like, this is the thing.
faking
They
it.
do it consistently, and they have made a few mistakes, right? They have lost 3 games all over this split. One of them was against that Fnatic. But you look at like what H2k are now compared to where they were last year. Yes, they've gotten a lot of new players, but they were like number 2, number 3, and there were a lot of weaknesses that we could pinpoint. People had figured them out, etc. Whereas Fnatic was just such a strong team across the board. But look at what's happened in only about a split's time. H2k with their new squad have become one of, if not the most dominant force here in Europe. I mean, still up for debate, very true. But Fnatic, they're struggling to find that footing.
Yeah, it helps if you trade players for better players on the side of H2k, and you don't for Fnatic. Trading cooldowns right now, Forgiven gets bumped, not much happening.
Yeah, can't get a catch on.
Siege Part 3 continues here for H2k. They should be able to do some damage to these towers.
And you can see Amna now has been able to push up mid. He has the Rift Hell buff for himself, so he was pushing top and he just walks in. Can he escape though? They're just gonna take bot tower.
It's the knockup on Reckless, does force the summon hero, but look, they just immediately trade for it. So Otawamne being the hero that H2k needs, and look at just how tanky he is, keeping them occupied. Might even last until they get to the party. The spear goes flying. A little bit too late. Spirit does get the kill, but traded for a tower, H2k calls for it.
Fnatic has to go all in on mid tower now. I might even say they should just dive straight onto them. There is flash body slam for Spirit, then Gamsu going in to knock up a target or lock him down. Because like, when you finally get a kill, that's where you stop this split pushing and like the constant pressure from happening, and you allow yourself to group. You've got to be able to go for it then.
Yeah, but they need to do it within 20 seconds, because then Odawan will come out of the base with Homeguard's teleport. This wave is gone. They're not committing.
Sure shot. A lot of damage on Vander, but really that's it.
It's also risky. We're only 20 minutes into the game, so you don't have any armor on Gamsu. You have no armor on Spirit, so tanking the tower is obviously difficult. But it's what we're going to see later on in the game. The reason Amne is able to push mid tower there as a tank and Gamsu stuck top is because, you know, the Rift Hell buff into your play by playing with him killing the minions leads to him pushing the lane.
Even further.
And then as soon as the play happens spot, 4-man is there to defend from Fnatic versus 4-man from H2k, and he just walks mid. Because they push up every lane before they move to the other lanes, and they can always just catch that wave at tower, and that's just the same over and over.
And they've been able to control the tempo that way. Just so much pressure inside the jungle. Jankos, that man should be caught here. He is interrupted. Mid-jump, flashes the big barrel. Just knocks him even further away, but he's escaped for the time being. H2k, yeah, they're running Fnatic around the map here, and even though those power spikes will come in very late, H2k aren't concerned right now.
Good move by Spirit, though, because that's something with these aggressively invading teams. Sometimes you just offer them too much respect. We'll get into that later, though, as we fight for the red buff.
Looks like it goes over to Ryu.
One difference I do want to see from some of these Gragas players, I've seen it quite a bit now in the LCS, is when they body slam in, they want to land a Q and then ulti after for the maximum amount of damage, but it actually gives you a chance to flash. Then because you get knocked up from the body slam, and when you land, you can flash out of it. So if you just body slam an instant ulti, there's no flash reaction then from the other player, and he gets knocked into whatever member you want to knock him into. So in this case, Spirit should have knocked him into Gamsu. Gamsu could have then locked him down, and he wouldn't be able to flash over a wall. But because he puts in the Q first, delays his ulti, he allows Jankos to flash out. Not a fan of it, because I think the damage from that Q is not high enough
to warrant the difference.
Yeah, you know, knock him away from that wall so he can't flash to safety and have Gamsu lock him down, and you get a kill, and it allows you to push a lot easier on this tower, instead of you want to maximize your damage.
There's also some sick pinball combos you can do. If you watch the Gragas compilations, you just put the Q somewhere and then you knock him into it. Gets even prettier if you predict the flash while doing it.
Oh man, that would be sick.
Come on, Spirit, that's your job right now.
The Gragas Mad Life.
What's
whatever that is.
The Gragas sec?
We'll come up with a better one, I'm sure. H2k, their job right now, though, is just continuing to clear that wards out. They shifted their attention to the top side since that inner still remains. Obviously, the one in the middle a little easier for Fnatic to defend, but they're not really pushing back on this top just yet.
Fnatic have learned something, though. They have 3 blue trinkets and a yellow against this very pink warded Baron area. That is something they have failed in before. They held onto their yellow trinkets too long and lost too much pressure. So now they can stall, and remember, they're still going for the late game. Kite on the edge roll, scaling on Fabivan. He's still in the game. 200 CS at 23 minutes by no means is bad. Already on 2 items, 1 more, and he will hit his power spike.
Again, the early kills definitely helpful for Fnatic, keeping this somewhat close. But now obviously for H2k, the next objective is going to be setting up this Baron over and over, force Fnatic into a bad fight. I would like to see ZZ Rod Portal for Omna, just to have more pressure in that side lane. He's already super tanky, and it does give him 60 MR, which is the second highest from any item in the game.
And then he can also leave his lane. He can put pressure, leave it, force Gamsu to deal with it, and force some plays here. But now we're seeing the power of Febiven, but H2k simply don't care.
Fnatic will try to push them back. Spirit was showing force there. But H2k continually just keep the siege going. It's parts 3, 4, 5. As long as the budget's still there, they'll just keep on firing away, making those sequels. 24 minutes on the clock. Fnatic, though, as long as they don't give up any more towers, they've got to be happy with this, because they aren't giving up any kills as well, and nothing on the map is being taken. The Baron, yes, they're getting wards cleared out of it, but they know as long as they can see H2k, they're not taking it.
And the budget is definitely there for these sieges, though. Once this tower goes down, we're approaching, yeah, a little higher than a 4,000, 5,000 gold lead here for H2k.
I don't know if being happy, you know, it's tricky because despite the early kills, they're still so far behind, and like they have 0 map pressure right now.
Well, they gave it up there, so there you go.
So again, it's gonna be just about Baron being set up by H2k. Get Odo Amne in a position where he can actually pressure Gamsu a bit more towards the tower. Unless he just wants to build, like, again, I think ZZ Rod is a great item for him right now.
Yeah, I mean, they do just keep pushing forward, and they do just keep growing that gold lead. You know, it's gotten even up to our favorite number, actually, 5.5k at about 25 minutes. They continue to keep the pressure going. Vision covered. They're not trying to like outright bait the Baron, but they just make sure that Fnatic are completely in their constant.
Yeah, this is the point. This is the point where you keep your eyes on Vander. By the way, talking to probably in the makeup area a little earlier today, right before they went on stage, is like, yeah, the Baron baits. That's when support's job gets reduced to running in, placing your wards, basing to refresh them, place them again, basing, and just keep going. That's why Vander is doing the more efficient route with 4 wards on his side zone instead of 3. Probably gets tired from running back and forth every time. But that sadly, with the blue trinkets, is kind of what the Baron baiting has become. You have to continuously over and over repeat until Fnatic breaks, until they run out of blue trinkets, and that's when you can strike.
And also, a lot of teams are, instead of just trying to bait the Baron purely with vision, they're trying to force a Baron fight to force the enemy teleport being used. Because then when the next time you do it, it's not about actually doing it blind. It's about getting your team in a bad team fight, honestly. They're stunning it straight away. There's no blue trinket used. Reckless does have his.
It just got up, so he's going to use it immediately. And that's why H2k, they were trying to 2-man it by leaving 3 members in the mid lane to fake it out. Fnatic, this time, with a better understanding of these Baron baits.
Forgiven! Big man body slams in with the flash, and that is all she wrote for Forgiven. Did not see that one coming. Fnatic, they can start pushing on this mid now. They've got to go for it.
And this time Spirit said, I don't need my Q damage. I need to make sure Forgiven cannot flash away. So he body slams in. He's knocked up. Then he shoots him back with his ulti instantly. No reaction there from Forgiven at all. He couldn't really do anything when it's a flash body slam into ulti. Fnatic starts the Baron now. And yes, they're down in gold. They're still very healthy. They're ready to fight.
Fnatic do not want the Baron. They want H2k to walk in and win a teamfight 4v5 because Forgiven is still in base.
Yeah, not quite committing to it, but they will wait for the Braum ulti. Knocks up Febiven. In comes Jankos. The Baron is so low. It's up for grabs. It's going in by Jankos. And now Fnatic, they're trapped in the pit, but H2k are bleeding low. Shut down. Ryu gets the kill, but Gamsu follows him over. 1 for 1 with a twisted advance, and now Onawande's caught between 3 Fnatic members. Still, H2k secured the big buff. And now with Odo going down, or will he, as he flashes away, still tanking, still surviving until the last second. 3 members with the Baron buff now.
Some absolutely insane plays here from H2k. That Baron buff dropping low. Jankos got hooked by Klein in that fight. He still lands a smite, but then what followed afterwards, it was just absolutely insane. The spear connecting with Ryu flashing, I think, over the wall into an auto attack, sniping Reckless in the back of that fight. That was just fantastic synergy by H2k.
I gotta praise Fnatic though, again, from the play first. They were setting up to stop this Baron here. Do you want to take the 50-50? Obviously not when you're 4v5. You'd rather engage on the fight, but the Baron drops so low at this point you have to take the 50-50.
I mean, the hook goes off here. Fnatic has more damage. The smite comes from Jankos, but watch this right now. He goes over the wall, flashes out, and keep your eyes on Ryu where he is in the fight and where he ends up.
Jump out, hit
Max in flash.
Spear does go down. H2k losing the fight, but still, that engage is also why, if we go back to that Gragas pick, why Gragas is such a good champion right now. The body slam flash is so hard to react to unless you predict that he's going to do when you see the body slam animation first. So it's near impossible.
You have to respect it though. A player of Forgiven's caliber has to respect the fact that when Gragas body slams towards you, he will flash. And even if he doesn't, your flash will still be the right decision. So this is something we're not used to saying. This was a major mistake from Forgiven.
And as he respawned too at the very end after all that play that it enabled, he actually just barely did get the Baron buff. he was like half a second away. So he doesn't have that. Only 2 members of H2k do. Let's see what they do to put it to use here.
Still, with the Baron buff, it's about just having it at least on 1 member to buff up the minions. 2 is the best for H2k in this case, 1 on the side lane with the Nautilus. And they're still pushing up with Baron buff. They have a lot of pokes still.
Take it, and they've caught Gamsu. Do they really want to go in on that? I don't think so, as Gangplank barrels continue to push him out. Clyde tanking the ace in the hole. So H2k continuing to force pressure all around the sides here. But Fnatic, Gamsu's got that TP, and they've got a few deep rewards that they do want to try and force a fight. Don't know if that's the right decision right now.
The second he bases though, Fnatic, the second Gamsu bases to set up that TP play, H2k will need, because Fnatic need him for presence when they're trying to defend the siege. Once Gamsu's not in vision, we know, or H2k can smell the gank though.
Fnatic has a chance to engage here though. They have double TP, and top lane is Ryu right now. He's very far away from anything. Sadly for Fnatic, I don't think they realized in time that there might have been an opening, because H2k was still pretty far pushed up towards this mid, but there's not a single ward actually around.
Yep.
They could have TP'd too, and Gamsu wasn't in base with Home Guard, so they simply weren't set up.
They weren't ready for it. H2k looking for a rotation to the top lane. Look at Forgiven 2, Phantom Dancer, going for a dueling build here, just to whittle down whoever comes at him with that max range.
But it's something we also see more on these auto-attackers, where going for double Zeal item for double or for an insane amount of crit is very, very strong. And
Odo's knocked in. He is just so damn tanky, but will it be enough as Clyde gets knocked up and taken out? Ryu gets the kill. H2k still want to back off. They traded Odoamne for the support of Fnatic, a 4v4. Ryu comes around the side to launch another rocket, but he's still bleeding out. Has to be careful.
30 minutes in though, the fights will get closer and closer. The Gragas value is so much higher than the Nidalee value. At this point in the game here, outside of a bit of poke basically, Febiven of course is going to outscale the Corki. So Fnatic's composition, despite still being far down in gold, is going to do a lot more with the gold they do have.
Yeah, that is definitely true, but you also have to account for the fact that the Jankos value has generally been higher than the Spirit value. That Baron steal, you can really call it that, was massive for them here.
But yeah, obviously, looking at the compositions, H2k, they simply actually don't want to fight. They want to whittle people down. Looking at what they have built for themselves here, where Nidalee, Corki, Caitlyn is the penultimate siege composition almost, so Fnatic being allowed to enter these fights is actually really good by them. They're making the correct decisions. They go instantly for the fight without being pulled down. Spirit has had some fantastic engages, and we've criticized him in the past where he went in for plays on the Graves and he died, but actually getting CC attached to his jungler seems to very well work for him.
What I like the most about Spirit in this game is he's not on a carry jungler. Because I think when he's been on a carry jungler, he's been struggling to kind of find the correct way to play. He's been very selfish in the way he was playing. I think in his team fights, he's been very weak, jumping in at the wrong times and dying. On a Gragas, it's a team champion now. It's a team player instead. And Spirit has been looking a lot better on it, and it's going to benefit Fnatic when it comes to these fights. But also just to go back on Forgiven's build, he's on 80% crit now. And obviously with that change to rapid fire cannon and static shift not stacking anymore with the proc, if you want to go for double Zeal item, which you do want on like Tristana and Caitlyn, these auto-attacking champions, it is very good with Phantom Dancer for him. And let's see it engage.
There's the flank. Odo looks around for the Ezreal, not able to find it before he's able to go back, but Forgiven was able to take out Clyde quite easily there. The cannon barrage comes down to try and deter any more as Spirit picks up the spree kill onto Odo, and Gamsu takes out Vander now, bleeding out, he's taken out, but Forgiven, big barrel, double kill for Spirit, and that ends up being a 2 for 3 rather.
Yeah, absolutely smashed there by Spirit in that fight, Forgiven. And this comes, H2k, good memory. They know that Clyde used his flash in the last fight, and they commit for him to kill him, but then they don't take into account it is just a thresh support. If you actually trade your cooldowns for a thresh support at this point in the game, you're playing over eager, and Fnatic do another good ultimate there from Spirit to throw Odoamne, who is nigh unkillable on his own, into the tower, and they use the tower assist to really burn through him.
Yeah, he might not be on a carry jungler, but Spirit's definitely showing up big, and I want to go back to that point, talking about him looking so much better as a team player. This might be what Fnatic needed all along. We'll see how this fight shakes out again.
Another thing to notice here is Nautilus hard engage on an Ezreal is not very effective because it's very easy for Ezreal to jump far enough away, and he's at his tower now. Odoamne coming in too close, getting locked down and knocked back, and
first flash.
He's not able to tank anything really effectively compared to what Gamsu's doing now here against 3 members, and yes, he goes down, but it's enough time board for Fnatic.
And more importantly, look at Febiven. He's finally ramping up on his Gangplank, and Fnatic can do this like one more time. There's one more fight where they somewhat equalize. Faven will be able to just simply AoE almost the entire H2k lineup if that barrel doesn't get blocked by Vander. Right now, Vander needs to prioritize his shield, not at the Ezreal, but to stop as much of the damage from Gangplank as he can.
Yeah, at this point, ignore the goal difference. It doesn't matter. Like, we have hit late game for Fnatic's composition. Their champions are better in the late game, so ignore the goal lead. Look at towers taken, you know, it means for H2k, if there's one mistake for Fnatic and they lose a fight, we know the death timers are very long now. That means the game is over because the base is very, very close to being exposed. Just one, or well, just the inhib towers back. But that goes down super quickly if a fight is lost. So Fnatic are still on the edge where one mistake will cost you the game. But they've been playing the fights really well. They have a greater setup for team fights late game. It's basically just unforgiven when it comes to this Caitlyn, and it's not enough against Gragas and Maokai. They're just gonna block that 80 carry damage, and it takes too long then for Caitlyn to take them down.
Still on boots 1. Rank 1 boots here to Caitlyn, so as Febiven, so it'll be a little more nimble once they upgrade the next item. I doubt he will go for 5 items with boots 1.
Well,
something we didn't actually mention as far back as when it was being built, but Gamsu, with that banner of command, has been slowly edging the bottom waves a little bit further to try and get themselves another tower. Only 2 towers on Fnatic's side, but as you mentioned, it doesn't matter if they win a big fight. The death timers are starting to get ridiculous. We're approaching 35 minutes, and H2k are running a little short on options.
I really feel like Odo Amne not investing heavily into split push is a big problem, because he's built purely for team fights, so he's no longer a threat in a side lane at all. Gamsu actually has more pressure in the side lane because of the banner of command. So you're constantly pushing, or you're building to just 5-on-5, but that's what Fnatic wants you to do.
You play into Fnatic's strengths, which is a team fight composition. Fnatic even kind of covered their grounds by adding a split push component because nobody can do it on the side of Fnatic. They want to group. So H2k not opting for any ZZ route, not opting for banner of command is a major macro mistake, and that's again something we're not used to saying. Right now though, they find an opening here, a window. 2 blue triggers are up, but Fnatic are not aware. Now they find out.
Yeah, teleport's coming in, but it is way too late to make the play here, but Fnatic will try anyways. Yanking in goes Gamsu, twist advance onto Vander, but they're taking damage, return fire. Inside, all the cannon barrage. Gamsu is the first casualty, and now Yanko jumps in. Zanya's mid-hop, leaps all the way back, and a lot of AoE damage. Spirit is shut down, but not before he finds Vander. However, H2k are winning this fight in spades. Double kill for Forgiven now. Only 2 members of Fnatic limping away.
Yeah, Fnatic in complete disarray. Get caught with their pants down. Baron goes down and they panic. They go in for the straight hard engage into a Braum. Vander blocked so much damage, completely annihilated Reckless's ultimate, and then H2k spread out and re-engage, and at that point, it's too little too late.
This is what you guys said earlier on in the game. What Vander needs to do, tank up the damage. Even if he dies, it's absolutely worth. The death timers are too damn high here. Almost 4,000 is the Baron power play as Odoamne gets hooked under double turret. Doesn't even matter. Cly, his health bar is melting, and Ryu Foss bombs him down. One more tower is all that's left. Febiven can't hold the line. Not a good day for Gangplank here. And the Nexus will fall, and H2k will complete the victory over Fnatic to keep themselves at the top of the table.
And the Fisho is disappointed.
Once again.
Yes and no. I mean, H2k were winning this game for basically the entire game long, except for that TP play in the bottom lane.
Oof.
Fnatic, they know they were getting back in the game.
So they made the panic play.
H2-1, H2k, H2-1, H2k, H2-1, H2k.
Still, got to be happy with that victory. Other than a few stumbles for H2k, they managed to find that win and go big, even though Fnatic were starting to scale like crazy.
And on that last engage, the only reason I see this is because the Fisho was frantically pointing at the screen. All Fnatic's flashes were on the brink of coming up. So they lost that fight with so few escape abilities available, and they kind of funneled in one by one, trying to chase that Baron, and they didn't keep the head cool. And Cly trying to chase the loss, and that's something we very often see here in competitive league. People, they make a mistake. Everybody makes a mistake, but it's how do you react to them.
Yeah.
Gotta keep your head cool, and over-eager engage gets immediately punished by H2k.
Watching a Thresh run first with just a Locket as his tank guides him, trying to like start the fight. Like, his job is basically to land on someone out at this point in the game. Again, it's just a panic move, but it's that inconsistent shot calling we highlighted earlier that H2k and Vitality does not have, very often at least, where Fnatic are winning team fights, They should know that right now the only way for H2k to really do anything is like setting up that Baron, because they can't push. Every time they've been pushing, they've been losing. Baron respawns, H2k rushes the Baron, and Fnatic is like, they're definitely not doing Baron, right? They're probably farming jungle. I'm like, oh, they're doing Baron. And then Baron dies, and they're like, oh, we have to engage now. And then they run into a choke point versus Baron and lose the fight. Like,
The Braum in that fight was just absolutely massive, though. The amount of
I know you love the Braum, but
I mean, we have to point it out. Vander is a support player. He carried it.
Yeah,
it's all Vander.
You're right. I mean, he had a great team fight there, but to me, it's the problem for Fnatic compared to last year, where that kind of Baron would never happen.
No.
Where you
Fnatic would be the team doing it.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
would be the one rushing that Baron.
In fact, they would have been confident enough to say, we're going to take 4 members there and even have 1 stall in the mid, 1 stall in the top, and force you to come to us. But it goes back to this being a completely different team.
That's 6 members.
6, yeah, no, 4, and then never do math, ever. I can't do it.
Tough math.
Forget about it. We're going to send it to Pulse on stage to talk about H2k's carry in the bot lane.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Forgiven after that game. And first off, I've got to ask you about the game in general. And you were just talking to me a little just before then. You're not feeling super great about that one. So what happened in your perspective?
I mean, I think I have to say it. Today I woke up and I got a letter from the Greek army that I have to go to my army duty in the March. So this means that I maybe lose the normal season again and the playoffs and the summer split, because it's a 9-month duration. So my mind wasn't in the game. I'm sorry if I speak like that. It's just, no problem. It's super hard, because it's again the second time that people take it away from me. And in general, like, I didn't hit the best of the games. I tried my best. We won. My teammates carried so hard, and I tried. I'm sorry. I did a couple of mistakes, but it happens. And tomorrow it may be my last game in LCS for at least a year. So I'm sad, but in the end I'm grateful for what I did. So.
Honestly, Forgiven, you performed amazingly. The crowd is here behind you as well. The fans have your support. And honestly, in that game, you guys looked fantastic after picking up that win as well. I do want to touch on briefly in that game, because you guys, you play a very methodical game. And do you believe that is the right way to play the game? Because you guys always going after those objectives, and you even took it to Fnatic.
I mean, yeah, obviously. I mean, my team is really great, and they were always giving good formation. I wasn't giving that much formation as in comparison to other games. And we had a plan going to the game, probably gave us the direction to do stuff, and we maybe misplayed. I mean, I got caught before Baron, and we finally got his mate, thank God. So, pretty much it. I mean, we had a plan, we didn't execute it properly, but ultimately we did it. I think the last fight won us the game, because we knew how we were going to win it.
Well, Forgiven, you played incredibly well. Thank you so much for giving me this time for this interview, and I hope it all works out with everything in your future. We're going to send it over to the analyst desk to take a look at the game.
Thank you very much, Pulse. You know what? I actually don't want to talk about the game anymore. I think we're all caught a little bit off guard about what Forgiven said there, and maybe it's interesting with 2 coaches here to talk about a team like H2k, who has gone through, of course, not having Ryu for a while, how this might influence them and how you would deal with it as a team.
Yeah, they just can't seem to catch a break, and if they would lose Forgiven, I think it would mean a lot for their standing in the top 3. So I feel really sorry for him, because he's a former teammate and a colleague. So as a friend, I feel really bad for him. And even as a competitor, you don't want to get first or second above H2k just because of something that isn't in their control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree on this one. Like, I was the previous coach of Forgiven, right, in Gambit. So like, he's like a really nice guy overall, and just hearing that is like really heartbreaking, right? Because like he's giving his best, he's playing a lot, and just because like it's something else that pulls out of the game, right? Reminds me of all these teams where like he was thinking he was one of the best, but in the end, like in the team, like he didn't manage to get a trophy or anything apart from the MVP, right?
Yeah.
So like it saddens me a lot to hear that after this game, yeah.
Yeah, in all objectivity, also pretty heartbroken hearing that from him in that one. Of course, H2k, with the track record that they have so far, they were managed to go on without Ryu there. What is kind of the different dynamic when the AD carry leaves in the way they like to play or would leave. Of course, we're all speculating here on things that might happen.
I don't think if he would get replaced that it would be a big deal for the macro, but they are such a force to deal with in a 2v2 lane, and they have a little bit of issues in the standard lanes, and if you take away Forgiven, I do think it has a lot of impact on their lineup.
Yeah, I can agree on this one. Like playing against Forgiven Vander is always like tricky. If you go for lane swap, you're sometimes happy, but if you go into 2v2, you always expect to have a good matchup, otherwise it's a bit hard. So, well, like, I don't know. I'm a bit shocked too.
Yeah.
So I will just like move on and see what gets for that.
I think we all are. We didn't. That was just completely out of the blue. We were ready to talk about the game, and I mean, all credit to Forgiven for doing that interview because clearly a tough time. But I mean, yeah, just out of complete left field.
Yeah, especially when we know how passionate he is about playing and about putting up those numbers and doing well. I think we're all a little bit taken aback. We'll also have Prolly joining us later, so we'll be able to shed a little bit more light on this, possibly. For now, though, we're going to take a quick break. We need a breather. And Splice and Origin will gear up on stage to take the next game, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Catch the wave! Catch the wave! What's happening? Protect the Lucian! Protect the Lucian! Oh my god, he's winning the game!
And all of a sudden, Reckless and Spirit are right behind him. Vander's gone big. Explosive cast. Not quite committing to it, but they will wait for the Braum multi. Knocks up Peppermint. In comes Jankos. The Baron is so low. It's up for grabs. It's Jankos going! Taken by Jankos!
Jorge, Leo.
It's fine.
Fender.
Nice, yo.
Good job.
Continue. Kate, flash.
Nice.
Nice.
Keep going.
And H2k will complete the victory over Fnatic.